Good afternoon. Thanks for joining us Across the Fence. I'm Fran Stoddard. Winter time is when farmers reflect and recharge for the next growing season. For sugar makers, the time for planning and preparation starts now. The 2021 Vermont Maple Conference begins December 8th and runs through Saturday, December 11th. Organizers are offering a hybrid conference that will be both online and in person. Topics range from how-to workshops for small-scale producers to panel discussions by leaders in the maple industry. To talk about what's on tap for the 2021 Maple Conference, we welcome UVM Extension Maple Specialist Mark Iselhart. Before we talk about specific workshops, tell us about how and where people can sign up.
Hi, Fran. Yeah, thanks for having me. The important thing is for folks to check out the website at vermontmaple.org. This event is a partnership between UVM Extension and the Vermont Maple Sugar Makers Association. So if you go to vermontmaple.org, go to their events page, you'll see a lot of information, the whole program of classes, and there's a button there to sign up for the event. And you can see the cost of the event is quite reasonable. It's $10 if you just want to do the online portion, $25 if you want to have access to both online and the in-person event on December 11th. And that includes lunch, so it's a great deal.
Wow, terrific. So talk to us a little bit about the in-person sessions that you're offering.
Sure. So December 11th is the one in-person event. And this is a change from the past where we've had two events, one in Hyde Park and one in Brattleboro most recently. And for a variety of reasons, we've decided to condense it all into one single in-person event. And that'll be held at Vermont Technical College, a great facility, very central. Hopefully everyone can find their way to Randolph. We have 8 in-person classes, everything, like you said, from people who've maybe never tapped a tree to folks who are really well established and integrated into the maple industry will get something out of it. One of the signature events is the industry panel discussion, where we have experts at both research, forestry, all sorts of topics, discussing where the industry is currently, where the season was just passed, and where the industry is headed in the short term and maybe some long-term predictions.
Fantastic. And just getting together with other people who do this is a wonderful thing. So that's terrific. And certainly the pandemic inspired a lot of first-timers to try making maple syrup. What kinds of sessions are you offering for sugar makers who are just starting out?
Right. So when everyone was spending a lot more time at home and looking for some new activities, some new hobbies, a lot of people turned to maple. It's a great way to be outside in the late winter, early spring. And we heard from manufacturers of equipment up and down the state that they really had a hard time keeping equipment in stock because so many people were turning to it. So we have 2 sessions beginning sugar makers from the woods, tree identification, that sort of thing, sap collection, and then we have in the sugar house. And this video is showing a project I did last season where I produced a very small reverse osmosis unit, and I'll be talking about that in one of the small scale sessions. We also have a nice discussion with Kate McCabe from Vermont Evaporator Company, again, talking about small scale producers and the specific issues that they face when they're trying to make maple syrup.
Okay, great. Yeah, we talked to Kate, and it was a great discussion about and how many people are getting out and looking at her evaporator out with their families and friends, just something to get together outdoors. So interestingly, have you gotten many inquiries about these backyard sugar makers, and how far can someone go before their hobby becomes a business?
Right. Well, I mean, the business side of things, it's not clearly defined where the line is as far as turning into a business. I know that there's a very natural progression. Once you tap a few trees, you just get immersed in this really unique activity, and it really takes over. And a lot of people will see pretty significant growth within a few years. But there are plenty of people who feel like they want to stay at a certain number of taps, and that's totally fine too. So really, I think it depends on what else they have going on in their lives. If it's strictly a hobby, some people spend a lot of times on their hobbies. So I think it really depends on the individual, but everyone is in the end really trying to make the best quality product and really trying to be part of this great tradition of Vermont maple production and make sure that they're they're making a good product, regardless of where or how much they're making.
Right, and whether you're making syrup for friends or family or for sale to the general public, food safety, of course, is going to be also an important issue. Do you have sessions on for food safety?
We do, yeah. And in general, maple is considered a low risk food. So it's not like some other agricultural products that might have some issues that need to be really looked at. But there are basic standards that need to be followed. We have sessions from quality control and food safety experts. We have sessions on the new Sugar House certification program, which is part of the Vermont Maple Sugar Makers Association. And then we'll also be weaving in food syrup quality through the small scale discussion. The law has very specific guidelines, or not guidelines, but rules as far as the density, the color, the flavor. And we'll just be sure that anyone who's there who has any questions about it can get answers.
Fantastic. And I also hear that at the in-person event on Saturday, you're going to have someone there to test hydrometers. So why should sugar makers have this piece of equipment inspected?
Right. So hydrometers really talks about the density of syrup. Have you boiled it enough? Is it the right thickness? Now, if you don't boil your syrup enough, it's too thin, it can spoil, it can ferment, it can mold. If you boil it too much, you end up with hard sugar crystals in the bottom, and that's really difficult to pour on pancakes or have in your coffee. So the hydrometer is a precision instrument that is used to float in the syrup to determine what the density is. The state of Vermont tests all the hydrometers for sale in the US, in the state of Vermont and elsewhere. There's a lab actually on campus at VTC where they test about 10,000 hydrometers a year. So attendees for the in-person event on the 11th can tour that lab and actually bring their hydrometers and make sure that they're accurate, because you wouldn't want to have a mistake with all the work involved in making this.
Sure, what a great service. And how is climate change affecting sugar makers? How are you addressing this topic at the conference now?
Well, it's a really big topic. Hard to boil it all down, so to speak, into one little soundbite. But sugar makers are tapping trees earlier than ever before. Some of that has to do with the scale of some modern operations. Some of it just has to do with the weather that we're seeing, the patterns. So we have Ali Kashaba, who's the climate forester for the state of Vermont. She'll be presenting on issues related to climate change in maple. The time scale, the near-term risks, a lot of times we're worried about abnormal warm-ups during the season, which can cut off sap flow. Longer-term risks have to do more with sugar maple and other species being competitive in the forest, where historically they've been quite competitive, but as the climate changes, their ability to compete against other species is being questioned.
Wow, well, that could be a whole other program we can talk about.
Absolutely.
So there's one other presentation to highlight that's being presented by your colleague, Tim Perkins. Tell us a little bit about his workshop that is called Ask Dr. Tim.
Yeah, sure. So Dr. Tim Perkins is a longstanding faculty member at UVM in the plant biology department. He's the director of the Proctor Maple Research Center since 1996. And he is nearing retirement, and we thought it would be a great opportunity to have people. He's so involved in so much of the modern research, anything from tapping saplings to check valve spouts to just maintaining and achieving high yield. So it's a really open-ended topic. Tim's a gracious presenter, and so people can bring any question they want related to maple, and he's happy to field them. So we're excited to have this segment.
Terrific. And so where is the maple industry in terms of supply going into 2022? How are things last year? Where are you at?
Sure. Well, the COVID pandemic really boosted demand for maple. We saw huge amounts of demand from people cooking at home, not so much from food service when the lockdown was really on, but people have been cooking more at home and using maple, not just for breakfast, but up and down the menu. So demand is strong. The season 2021 wasn't really what most sugar makers would have hoped for, but there is still plenty of syrup out there. So, and we're right around the corner really from the 2022 production season.
So we have just a little bit more time. So for those people that might want to try this, maple is more popular. People are doing it. Are there quick suggestions about how to start out, how to tap that first tree, and what to look for?
Right. Well, I would recommend folks registering and attending the small scale and beginning sugar maker workshops. The important thing to realize about this is we have online and in person. So really check out the website, look at the program, make sure the session you're interested in is either online or in person, because they are different. So make sure you check that out. And I'm always available to answer questions if people want to reach out to me directly, especially if they're just getting started. The first thing is you have to be able to identify a maple tree. So I can certainly walk them through that.
Okay, and so your prediction for the next season?
Wow, it's a bit like trying to say if the Sox are going to win next year's World Series, but I think sugar makers more and more are adopting best practices, and they're tapping carefully, and there's really the stage is set for a good season. It really depends on the weather during that 6 to 8 week period in late winter, early spring. So unfortunately, we can't do too good forecasting that far out, but the hopes are that it'll be a great season.
Great.
Exactly.
So as we've discussed, the 2021 Vermont Maple Conference Week kicks off on December 8th and runs through the 11th. Visit the website on the screen to register for both the online and in-person sessions. You can also call 802-786-9437 if you need further assistance. Thank you so much, Mark Iselhart, for joining us today and talking about maple.
Thanks, Fran.
Have a great conference. And thank you for joining us across the fence. I'm Fran Stoddard. Stay well.